Ladies and gentlemen, we have been gifted another Frankenstein creation from the wacky world of the modern left. This week, Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana, admittedly not in the smoothest fashion, have announced that they will be creating a new breakaway left-wing party. Now, this is the logical endpoint of modern leftism. In fact, it is merely formalising an informal alliance that has been growing for some time. That alliance is the clunky coalition of Islamist extremists, eco-zealots and far-left identity politics warriors. Now, to the casual politics observer, you may wonder what those groups have in common. It is the Queers for Palestine phenomena. In so many ways, Islamists abhor what the kind and compassionate modern left appear to base their ideology around. Well, there is one common thread, and that is a desire to tear down everything that makes this country and indeed Western civilisation great. They are anti-humanist ideologies, and that is the one thing that keeps them awkwardly bound together. But to think that this group is somehow a joke as a result of that is to misunderstand where politics is going. We've seen this phenomena build for some time. We saw it in New York in recent weeks, where a communist Islamist has then suddenly taken the lead in the New York mayoral candidacy race. I think that this is a genuine threat in UK politics. It is a genuine threat because conservatism is dying out in this country. It is a genuine threat because the left have been increasingly radicalised in this country. Make no mistake, it is an if and it's a big if. But if they can get their act together, this party will be a big threat to Labor in the next election, and it will be a big threat to the Conservatives. My tip, I think that this party will end up outvoting the Conservatives in the 2029 election. That will be a tragedy for Britain, but unfortunately this has been coming for some time.
Benjamin, I think I have to start with you on this.
Well, I mean, look, Zara Sultana certainly isn't my politics. I think she's quite extreme. But I think you look at it in the wrong way, because a lot like when people try to write off, or disparage reform because they don't like some of the things they say, and I don't like what they say, I think it looks at it from the wrong angle. There's a reason why reform gets 31% in the polls, and there's a reason why they're setting up this new party, because there is a groundswell of feeling along these lines. And I think it's an example, just like the New York guy, of when you fail to deal with the basic problems, that people can afford a quality of life, that young people can get on the housing ladder, that they feel secure in their workplace and that they think they can maybe afford to have a family. When you get a lot of the basics wrong in a society, people will turn to anyone that tries to offer them a conclusion. That's why Jeremy Corbyn did remarkably well in the 2017 general election. And so I kind of think you're coming at the wrong point. The reason this is happening is a long way before they set up a political party.
Can I come in there then? Because Grumpy Grandad, thank you for messaging in, has said Corbyn wants to unite the Muslim vote. He knows it's powerful and it's his only way back into politics. If he manages it, we've got a major problem.
I mean, at the last election, we saw for the first time a sort of explicitly pro-Gaza Muslim parties getting MPs elected. And so I think that is alarming in my view. But at the same time, most Muslims, the vast majority of Muslims, did not vote along those lines. And so I think it's also exaggerated. There is a mainstream of Muslims in this country, and they don't take those views. But the thing is, in a first-past-the-post system, especially with this ever-increasing number of parties, we've got two new right-wing parties in the last week. You don't need many votes to get across the line, and so they could do quite well.
Make no mistake.
Yeah, I agree. God, I'm agreeing with you so much today. I think one of the problems is that pendulum. And I think, Will, you represent that right side of the pendulum. And I think the more it swings, the more you're going to start getting extremes on both sides. I don't think he's there trying to get the Muslim vote. If that was Galloway, maybe you could say that might be the case. I think he's representing those Labour voters that generally don't feel of this Corbynite, Blairite, sort of centre-left perspective, and they feel they've been left behind. They've got lots of different policies, like you've just said, where economically a lot of people have been left behind. I think that's happening. I think it's a reaction to this kind of swing of way to the right, then to the left, then to the right, and that's a natural.
This fundamentally misunderstands my point, and that is they are bound together because they are both an anti-West. It is an anti-Western alliance.
Disagree.
It is absolutely an anti-Western alliance. Make no mistake, Islamic sectarian politics is a cancer on this country, and with the increasing amount of Islamic people who are entering this country via illegal and legal means, it will continue to become more and more problematic. You don't need to get a majority of Islamic voters in order to swing close seats, as Wes Streeting will find out in 2029. This is going to get worse and worse over the coming years unless dramatic immigration reform is taken.
Nobody can forget that painful interview with Corbyn and Piers Morgan, where for 5 minutes Corbyn absolutely refused to condemn Hamas.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I was chair of Young Labour when Jeremy Corbyn became Labour leader, and that was not a good fit because I'm as Blairite as they come.
What, for you pretending you were young? Or
Yeah. Well, they actually said I was pretending to be Labour because everyone called me a Tory, which doesn't help that I'm now on GB News, but there we go. But I just think, actually, in a way, you're wrong, because look at Glastonbury. That wasn't, a Sharia gathering. That was young white people that were saying that.
Exactly.
Anyway, I think this one's going to run and run, and it'll be interesting to see how it develops. But now it is time for our next debate. Who's up next? It's
I am up next. Right, so this week, Andrew Neil called Britain an unserious country, and I have to say that he's right. When you look at our politics right now, you've got a Prime Minister that's been battered by U-turn, seemingly without real vision, a Chancellor cracking under pressure, and the public stuck in endless NHS queues, paying record taxes while the cost of living soars. We've become obsessed with the small stuff, left against right, personality feuds, culture wars, gossip. Meanwhile, the big stuff, growth, security, health, a future for our young people is ignored. Nobody's leading with vision. Where are the JFKs? Where are the Mandelas? Leaders with a purpose bigger than themselves. Nobody is speaking hard truth, and nobody seems able to bring us together around the shared vision for the future of this country. Those tears in Parliament, human, yes, and they deserve sympathy. But they're also a symbol of a government and an opposition struggling to convince us that they can steer Britain in the right direction. We're not just an unserious country, we're waiting as a country for someone serious to lead it.
Yeah, that's the key, isn't it? I think week after week we sit here and we always come to the same conclusion, that we have not had a leader who will stand up like Churchill did and just take us there. And that is what we're looking for. And I think it will come in time, but I don't see anyone at the moment. Do you, Benjamin?
Yes. What I'd say, I think that's totally wrong. I think
it wouldn't last long.
I think we have a very serious government, and actually that's been illustrated very impressively on the world stage when we've been central to doing deals on helping Ukraine, on working with Trump on tariffs and getting the trade deals with the US and with India. Yeah, that's what serious countries do. Right, and that's exactly what's been happening. I think what was unserious is when we had Tantrum Truss, and then we had, Boris Johnson that just looked like a buffoon. I think that was unserious.
But again, this is whataboutery. Of course, that was unserious. This is all part of it.
I was going to say the problem is it's uninspiring, not that it's unserious.
But it is still whataboutery.
Yeah, and it is unserious. I mean, that is it. It's a lack of vision. There's no one serious. Like, say, for instance, Starmer saying, I'm going on this direction because it's fiscally responsible and that's that. And him speaking to his backbenchers and getting them on board because he has a clear vision about what this country's future is. Instead, he's going backwards and forwards. And I say on both sides of the political spectrum. And when you talked about Starmer, you're talking about his foreign policy. Yes, he's had a couple of successes, but domestically, he's been found wanting. You can't disagree with that. Yeah. And we don't have leadership that has real clarity and vision for where this country needs to go.
Trey, there's an elephant that you always ignore in the room.
Which is?
That is, we no longer have a shared cultural identity, and that is as a result of the failed policy of multiculturalism.
Disagree.
Back 20, 30 years ago, before the waves of immigrants entered this country from cultures that are not compatible to the United Kingdom.
Yeah, like you.
From cultures that are not compatible to the United Kingdom. We had a shared identity. That shared identity has fractured, and as a result of that, it is impossible for a leader to try and bring this country together because there isn't any single vision or identity around which they
disagree.
You just said that it's not there.
I'll give you an example, right? Mandela, all right, spent how many years in prison? Let me give you an example. He could easily have come out and been right. Every white person oppressed us, death to all of them. He didn't. He had a Truth and Reconciliation Committee. He thought, how can I lead this nation? He wore the green jersey for what some people represented years of apartheid, and he wore it with pride. And he had a vision for modern South Africa.
You know,
and he drove that through. Whether you agree with or not, he had a vision for that country, and at least he had that country going in one direction. You can't just blame immigrants for every problem.
Trey. The difference is, when your family came over, you were from a Christian background. When all of the Windrush people Republican. They were from a Christian background. There was a shared culture.
True.
Mandela had that too. We don't have that now. I think Will's right. What do you think, Connie?
Well, I don't understand how you could disagree with this. It's not just that we don't have a shared culture, like you were saying, Will. It's that we actively have a political class, and this Labour government has been so awful on this issue of making people feel bad for daring to say what you've just said. What you just said is literally listed, as I said earlier, on the Prevent programme as being a sign of being radicalised into far-right terrorism.
Don't arrest me, please,
being
ladies.
called, it's jumping on a far-right bandwagon to want a national inquiry, even if it was just aimed at...
Exactly, and that's a lack of leadership, because I would never stop Will from saying what he's saying, even though I disagree with him. But there needs to be some sort of leader that can encompass what you're saying, and have a shared vision.
But you can't do that if you don't acknowledge the problem.
Exactly.
But you just said that it's not due to multiculturalism.
But multiculturalism in and of itself isn't. You just said, when my parents came over, we had the same culture. It wasn't that different. We spoke English.
But it's a long way
but it's
but what I'm saying, it wasn't then about multiculturalism. It's a lack of vision for what this country stands for. What are its qualities? What are its values? What does it stand for? Am I not part of that because I have more melanin in my skin?
I disagree
with
that. I think you're completely misunderstanding. So multiculturalism is different from multi-ethnic.
That's right.
Multi-ethnic, completely fine. If you have cultures that, and the way that immigration has happened in this country, naturally, I don't really see how you can get around it. You have subcultures that are operating in these insular bubbles, almost entirely separately from what should be a liberal society.
But again, some of that has happened because some people have moved from these areas the minute some of these cultures have got there. I don't think they just wanted to be like that. There is an element of that. But again, there's no vision. Like, I would have things like, I don't get why half the country is Republican. It should be, right, we've got the royal family, we have the national anthem, have a vision.
I'm going to stop, Trey, because we've got loads more to come on the show tonight, including the